We're going to be talking about money in this blink. But our journey doesn't start on Wall Street or the trading floors of London and Frankfurt. Our first stop is southern Alaska. We're in the world's largest temperate rainforest. Anglers prize this area for its clear streams, which are filled with large, trout-like fish known as Dolly Varden char. These Pacific streams contain little sustenance until the early summer. That's when salmon laden with eggs arrive. Char love these eggs, and what follows is a months-long feeding frenzy. But then the salmon leave. The streams once again become a food desert. For years, biologists couldn't figure it out. There just weren't enough calories to support so many char year-round. Yet there they were, month after month, hundreds and thousands of thriving fish. So how does it work? The answer is phenotypic plasticity, a species' ability to adapt its physical form to suit its environment. Dolly Varden char shrink their digestive organs and slow their metabolism when there's little food. When the salmon arrive, by contrast, those organs double in size and their metabolism speeds back up. Okay, so what's that got to do with finance? Quite a lot, actually. Adapting your behavior to your environment also holds the key to saving. Let's break that down. Google the question, "How much should I save?" and you'll get 150,000 hits with very precise answers. You should save 20% of your income, one self-proclaimed expert claims. No, another says, you should have 3 times your income saved by the age of 40. All those answers share the same assumption, namely that everyone has the same ability to save. That's just not true, though. As economists point out, the biggest detriment of savings is income. In the United States, folks in the bottom 20% of earners typically save just 1% of what they earn. For the top 20%, that rises to 25%. The idea that everyone should save X amount flies in the face of empirical evidence, which shows that not everyone can. And the thing is, lots of people move up and down those income brackets. Life, after all, isn't static. Often, you'll earn less when you're young and more when you're older. But high earners also quit the rat race to take on more fulfilling work in less well-paid industries. Some jobs force you to live in expensive cities. Others don't. Then there are life's highs and lows and their financial consequences. Marriages and divorces, children, promotions and layoffs, leaking roofs and Christmas bonuses. To find a single neat rule which covers so much messy reality is a fool's errand. Which brings us back to our Dolly Varden char, which lower and raise their caloric intake according to how much food is available. Their maxim? Eat what you can, when you can. And that's a great principle for saving too. Save what you can, when you can. In practice, that means saving more when you're earning more and less when you're earning less. Let's recap. We often think about saving as a matter of should and ought. But money doesn't follow moral laws. It's mathematical. And it bluntly says you can't save what you don't have. So let's forget about Google's questionable insights into what you should be doing and reformulate the question more pragmatically. Where are you financially? What can you save right now? To find out, you'll need to open the books and take a closer look at your money. Accounting is a famously double-sided thing. One column records money in, the other records money out. Add up everything in the first column and then subtract the amount in the second. There's your answer. Savings, in other words, equals income minus spending. The first column is easy. It's the number on your paycheck. Outgoings are a bit trickier. The standard advice is to keep track of every cent you spend. If you've tried and failed to do that, you're in good company. Even the author can't do it. Fixed expenses like rent or mortgage payments and monthly utility bills are easy. They don't change much. But keeping track of fluctuating expenses is harder. So here's how to simplify things. Find your fixed costs and estimate the rest. Take groceries. You know how often you go shopping and how much you usually spend, so average it out. For example, I do a weekly shop which usually comes in at around $100. Some weeks it's closer to $90. Other weeks I need to replace something relatively expensive, like a bottle of nice olive oil. Then it's near to $110. All in all, though, I'm spending about $400 a month. Now apply that to all your expenses. What on average do you spend on going out? On coffee before work? On drinks after work? On fuel or train tickets? On books or movies or your hobby? Once it's down on paper, complete the equation. Say you're taking home $4,000 after tax and spend $3,000 on bills and variable expenses. That leaves $1,000. That's how much you can save. Is the number you're left with enough, though? Again, it depends. The general rule of thumb is that you'll need 25 times your annual expenditure to retire, which is what most of your savings are for. But how that looks in practice comes down to lifestyle. If you're used to regular foreign travel and a busy social life in an affluent area with high prices, you won't want to give those things up. That means you'll need more than someone who doesn't do or have those things. But let's say it's not enough. What then? There are two answers. The first, which happens to be the right one, is the blunt mathematical answer. You need to grow your income, to earn more. That's a painful realization, which is probably why so much mainstream financial advice focuses on the second answer, gutting your quality of life to save more right now. But that's a recipe for misery. The reason you can't save yourself rich is simple. You run out of things to cut back on fairly quickly. Put differently, there are hard limits to saving. What about growing your income, though? There are limits here, but they're a long way off. If you're earning $10,000 an hour, it might not make sense to grow your income any further. You're already set financially, and you might value free time more than the extra money you could be earning if you worked more. Similarly, high earners might forego raises if that extra money is taxed at a very high rate. In most cases, and for most people though, growing your income is a way to go. The question is how? The author's answer is in the book's title. But before we get to that, let's talk horses. More specifically, racing horses. One of the horse racing world's greatest stars is a man called Jeff Sater. For years, Sater looked at all sorts of criteria before buying horses. He'd check their pedigree and measure their nostril size, or the weight of their excrement, or the density of their muscle fiber. But nothing correlated with racing performance. So Sater tried something different. He measured horses' heart size, particularly the size of their left ventricles. Bingo. Finally, he'd found a reliable predictor of a racing success. He bought more horses with larger left ventricles and won more races. Sometimes a single piece of accurate information can help us understand a complex system, like the relationship between a horse's biology and its ability to win races, or the best way to grow your income in volatile financial markets. Here's how Warren Buffett summarizes that single piece of information. Most stock markets go up most of the time. He has a point. During the 20th century, the United States went through 2 world wars, the Depression, a dozen recessions, an oil shock, and a flu epidemic. But the Dow Jones, a measurement of the value of stocks, rose by 160,000%. That's after inflation, by the way. So what's the takeaway? Here's the author's view. The only investment advice worth following is to just keep buying. Averaged out over decades, it's much harder to lose than it is to win. Even famously sluggish markets like the Japanese stock market reward this philosophy. Japanese stocks hit their peak in '89 and still haven't recovered that level. If you'd made a one-off investment of $1,000 back then, you'd have $690 today. But if you'd invested $1,000 every year between 1989 and 2022, your $33,000 investment would have grown to $59,000. That's not a great return, but it's more than you'd have if you'd let inflation eat away at your cash savings. Of course, you don't have to wed yourself to a single market. As we said, most markets go up. What you really want to do is spread your investments. For example, by buying into an index of global companies operating in multiple markets. We're not going to get into the technicalities of how to do that here. That's something you're better off discussing with your financial advisor. What's worth remembering, though, is that historically, the line trends upwards. Hitch your money to that line, and you'll grow your income. In the world's deserts, there are two kinds of flowering plants: annuals and perennials. Annuals grow, reproduce, and die over a single season, while perennials live for any number of years. Desert-dwelling annuals do something strange, though. Each year, a portion of their seeds fail to germinate. That's true even when the conditions are perfect for sprouting. At first glance, that doesn't make a lot of sense. This is a harsh environment in which the survival of a species is anything but a given, after all. Why would a plant pass up an opportunity to reproduce? It comes down to water, or the lack of it. Growing plants need water, but there's not a lot of rain in the desert. Worse, what little rain there is falls at highly irregular intervals. If every seed sprouted simultaneously, a single drought would kill a plant's entire offspring and wipe out its lineage. So here's the evolutionary play. Seeds are kept back to sprout later, increasing the chance that some of these plants' early growth will coincide with one of those rare rainstorms. In finance, there's a name for this kind of strategy, the kind that's designed to prevent catastrophic wipeouts in case the future turns out badly. It's called bet hedging. Often, it involves a trade-off. For our annuals, keeping seeds back means giving up territory to competitors. But foregoing the short-term reward of territorial expansion isn't as valuable as the long-term reward of reproduction. Like those Alaska char we encountered earlier, these desert plants can teach us something valuable about money. Their lesson for us isn't about saving, however. It's about debt. Common sense says that debt is bad, period. Even the Bible warns us that the borrower is slave to the lender. But it's not as simple as that. In fact, debt can be pretty paradoxical. Take credit cards. We all know that credit card interest rates are extortionate. That once you start digging with that shovel, it's easy to end up in a hole that's hard to get out of. That's not necessarily wrong, but it's not the full picture either. It's fascinating. Credit cards can actually help low-income earners. Economists call it the credit card debt puzzle. Imagine someone has $1,500 in their checking account and $1,000 in credit card debt. The best play is to pay off the debt and make do with $500, right? Let's return to our annuals. At first, their behavior seems irrational. Look more closely, though, and that irrationality actually makes a lot of sense. So no, that's not necessarily the best play. When you don't have a lot of money, the future looks pretty daunting. One drought, one spot of bad luck, and you'll be wiped out financially. Your paycheck can't handle emergencies. If the car that gets you to work breaks down, you won't have enough cash on hand to get it fixed. Disaster. You also know that your credit rating isn't great, so finding a loan isn't going to be easy either. So what do? Well, you keep paying those extortionate interest rates to preserve your future access to credit. You keep some seeds back. You hedge your bets. You ensure financial survival. That goes to show that debt isn't really good or bad. It's a tool that can be used or abused. It all comes down to context. The real question then is this: does debt help you achieve your goals? The cool, calculating, rational agents of economics textbooks are a myth. Real humans are messy, impulsive, more likely to follow the crowd or the hidden logic of the subconscious than reason. That means we can't really talk about money in the abstract. We also have to look at its psychological impact, at how it makes us feel, which often enough is miserable. Take it from the American Psychological Association, which has been running an annual survey since 2007, which identifies the main stressors in Americans' lives. The topic that tops the list each year? Money. A 2018 study by Northwestern Mutual, meanwhile, found that half of all Americans experience high levels of anxiety around savings. And that anxiety appears to affect everyone, regardless of income. Another survey found that 20% of investors worth between $5 and $25 million were also worried about not saving enough. What explains this epidemic of stress around savings? In a word, guilt. We're bombarded with financial advice that makes us second-guess ourselves. Coffee out? Crazy, you're literally peeing hundreds of thousands of dollars down the drain. New sneakers? Not if you want to get on the property ladder. Organic peanut butter? If you wanted to retire, you'd buy regular. The underlying message couldn't have been better designed to trigger guilt. Every cent you spend, it says, could have been saved. And if you actually took responsibility, that's exactly what you do. But you can't save every cent, and trying only makes us ill. When researchers at the Brookings Institute looked at Gallup survey data on savings and mental health, for example, they found the stress around not saving enough outweighs the positive effects of saving. Their conclusion: saving is only beneficial if you can do it in a stress-free way. Saving, in short, is important, but so is quality of life. So how can you strike the right balance? How do you take care of your finances while preserving your health? Here's the author's take. Focus on purchases that maximize long-term fulfillment. A good place to start thinking about fulfillment is the American author Daniel Pink's book, Drive, which looks at human motivation. Pink argues that there are three things which fulfill us: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. In other words, being self-directed, improving our skills, and being part of something bigger than ourselves. Those are great filters to apply to spending decisions. Take that bugbear of so many financial experts, that latte you pick up from the coffee shop before work. It looks like a frivolous purchase. But maybe it's that latte which allows you to perform at your best at work. In that case, it's enhancing your occupational mastery. That's a deeply fulfilling long-term project, which means it's money well spent. Other frivolous-looking purchases might, on closer inspection, turn out to contribute to your sense of autonomy or purpose. In the end, money is a tool. It's what allows you to create a life you want to live. What's really difficult, then, isn't spending it. It's figuring out what you want in life. What do you care about? What would you like to avoid? What kind of values do you want to promote in the world? Once you figure that out, spending money will be both easier and more enjoyable. You've just listened to our blink to Just Keep Buying by Nick Maggiulli. The most important thing to remember from all this is, how much should you be saving? Spending? Investing? Borrowing? Nick Maggiulli is a realist, not an idealist, which is why he argues that it all comes down to context. How much can you save or invest? Does debt help you achieve your goals in life, or is it an emergency stopgap? Does spending fulfill you? It's only when you dig into those questions, he thinks, that you'll find a viable financial plan that works for you. Thanks for listening. Let us know what you thought of this content by giving the Blink a rating and leaving any other feedback that you'd like to leave. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy other titles in our library and look forward to your attentive ears in the next Blink.